Hey everybody. So in this video I wanted to talk about, this is going to be a little bit shorter than the last one. I want to talk about interfaces and how we can pass values from an interface to our player controller class without actually directly referencing the class that we're hitting. But first I wanted to show off this error here. That failed to load outer resource, and it states this stuff. I have a puppy on my lap. If we hit play, we'll see that our character's gone, all that good stuff. Okay, so if that happens, basically what's going on is your C++ class, it's kind of, the references are kind of broken. Okay, so the easiest way to fix this is just to right click in your C++ or your Visual Studio, excuse me, with Unreal Engine closed. That's very important, and click build. Now we may encounter another error, and you see all these errors right here. So what's actually happening here is it wants, let me see, let me find where it is. I'm not finding the error. But what we want to do is make the player controller header file the first one that's included. Okay. So now, save, and we'll build again. Oh, and it's yelling at me again. Hold on a second. I had another project open, so that could very well be the reason why. Let's see. Let's click build again. There we go. That's why. So I had another project open that was causing those issues. But we'll see. We'll build up. And the build has succeeded, so now we can reopen our project. We should be good to go. All right, so now if I go in here, you could see all my stuff's back. I didn't have to mess with anything, right? So now let's hop over to our C++ and take a look. All right, so if we go back over to our interactable master, actually, no, let's do our interface.h, okay? And in here, I want to add another virtual. So by defining something as virtual, that basically means that you can override it. And if we don't want to add in a C++ call or definition for this, we can do const to 0 and make it pure so we don't have to define it in the C++ class. My puppy is getting out of stuff right now. Excuse me. All right. So now that we have that set up, we want to move over to our interactable master header file, and we want to call that virtual function that we made, const override. And then what I'm also going to do is do a new variable for our interactable's name. Okay, we're going to put this in like that. And then I also want this portion of the name to be at the top of my details panel. So we can set that by doing display priority equals 0, like that. Okay. F string interactable, let's call it name. Okay. So we have our function here. Let's create a definition for that. I'm just going to think about it for a minute. There we go. And then we have our interactable name U property that we can edit in the details panel of our class. Right? So now, go ahead and, we also want to return interact name like that. Okay. So if we go to our C++ or our player controllers, C++ class, what I want to do here, let's create a local variable, info equals interface okay. So what's happening here? You go to our interface again. This guy is returning an F string. Okay. So if we go into our interactable C++ file, we'll see get info is returning an interactable name. Which is this guy right here, okay? My files are all messed up. There we go. So get info is returning an interactable name. So inside of our controller, we are setting a temporary F string, calling the interface and calling that function, and basically setting what this is returning to a string. Okay. So now we can G engine add debug on-screen debug message, and here we're saying we're printing interacted with and then a colon, and then this is kind of referencing whatever this variable is here, and this is of course our info right there. Okay. So now I blotted that out. Interactable master. Let's blot this out and instead just destroy the object. Okay. Now everything's saved, so we're going to go ahead and compile. All right, so now if I select this, because I set that display priority to 0, it's up here at the top. So new item. Let's duplicate that and say happy. Hit play. Interacted with new item. Interacted with happy. Okay. So it seems pretty simple on the surface, but what's actually happening is really cool because we're not directly referencing this interactable master object, right? We're accessing the information from the interface. So this guy has the interface implemented, and we're just passing variables. Think of the interface as kind of like a middleman between the two, right? And that's kind of what's happening here. Okay. So with this, you can pass through, values. For example, let's say in my player character, let's go to my header file here. I'm going to do a void add score like that, and let's do a float value. We're gonna create a definition for that, and then in here, oh, I need a score variable. Let's do that real quick. Sure, that works. So now, score plus equal value. So whatever this value is, it's going to add or subtract it. Actually, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to do score. Let's do, instead of that, score plus. Okay, so score equals score plus value, right? So now in interactable master. Yeah, let's do it. Let's do, instead of this, let's do virtual float. Item value Okay, and then inside of here, float item value override. We'll implement that. And then we'll pass through an item value, of which we'll just copy that and do, I don't want to add that. Let's do float value. And this we can change dynamically, but let's set the default value to 1. Okay. And then here, what did I call that again? I don't want to do item value, collect value, just so we could see the difference, right? Like that. Okay, so we have collect value. Let's see, player character, we have an add score. So from our controller, we have a reference to our player character. So let's say if, because we always want to make sure, oops. We always make sure that we're checking variables before we try and access them. But here we're saying if the player character is valid, we're going to player character add score, and then we're going to pull the interface item value. Okay, so whatever this value is right here, we're going to pass it through the interface, which is going to call the function in the player controller, which will call the function from the player character. This is a very basic example, of course. We can get a lot cleaner than this, essentially, but it's a good idea to see how these interactions can work, right? And how you can quickly add new values to this, right? So what I want to do here, I want to show that this is happening. So we're going to do this, and I'm going to make the color cyan. Okay. So now let's pop into Unreal Engine and compile. All right, so let's click on this, and now we see we have collect value. So let's say this is 10, and this one is going to be 5. Okay, so we'll click in here. I'll click that. We'll say interacted with new item, score 10. Now, when I click that one, the value of that's 5, right? So it should be 15, which it is. Interacted with happy, score 15. Pretty cool, right? So if you want to keep that score value elsewhere, you can. And this is a pretty good way of handling like health pickups as well. If you think of this like add health, and then set your health variable, and then determine if the interactable that you're interacting with is a health pickup. And then you could do something like that, right? So this is just overall a showcase. This isn't specifically a use case situation. In the next video, we'll be diving into kind of practical uses for this setup. Thanks.